We tricked you. You didn't enjoy any of your life. You didn't take trips. You didn't use your vacation time because you were so convinced that if you would just save your money at a financial disorder level of not enjoying life, and then they get to the end and then they especially can't enjoy life because they have this rude awakening.
What's up, everybody? We're back again with another episode of the Have It All podcast with your host, Kris Krohn, the amazing investor. We are joined today also by our special guest, Henry Washington. He's been in real estate a number of years, upwards of 70 rentals and flipping 10 homes a year. Big news, you're going to be a contributor to the Bigger Pockets podcast. Is that right?
Yes, sir. I'll be contributing to many of their media platforms.
Well, that's really awesome. And of course, Kris Krohn with us today.
You know, I'm just excited for this conversation because there's so many people, Carson, that, sometimes people look at me and they're like, wow, like they didn't know Kris Krohn from 15 years ago, right? That had all of these struggles and had his handicaps and things that were getting in his way. They're like, oh yeah, there's this Kris Krohn, the guy with the jet that's done $1 billion in real estate, that has had all the success and owns hundreds of businesses and looks like, right? Who really ever knows, but he looks like he has his act together. And I'm like, man, that is a poor synopsis of what my journey of struggle and challenge has been like to get here.
The
so I'm like,
reel.
Let's bring on Henry, who is a little fresher on the scene, only playing real estate for the last 4 years.
That's right.
And you got an amazing story, one that I really connected with when I heard it. It tugged on my emotional heartstrings. And I also just admire the man that you've chosen to become in that period of time.
So what I really wanted to talk about today, Kris, can I ask you, both of you, you both have had tons of success in real estate, but can I ask that we just take the kid gloves off for a little bit for the duration of this episode and get real with people? Is that fair?
I love it. That's my favorite way to be.
So what the title of this podcast is going to be is what's it really take to get into real estate? And I mean really.
Yep.
Right? Kris, you said something this morning that I wrote down. And this is like so quotable. Tweet this, put this on your wall. It's amazing. Kris, you said, it doesn't matter if you know something if you don't have the motivation to do it. Oh, how many people out there think that what's stopping them from getting into real estate is, I don't know enough. I don't have the money. I don't know.
Well, I meet two different kind of people, right? I meet the one person that says, I've been studying for years and I still don't know enough.
Taken the step.
And then I meet the other person that's like, I didn't know anything, but the pain was so deep and now I own millions of dollars in real estate. And I'm like, what is more valuable? Knowledge
or pain
or motivation?
Let's talk about the pain. Henry, do you agree with any of this? Do you feel like knowledge is really what stops people?
No, it's fear, right? It's fear that's stopping them. They think that by having the knowledge, it will eliminate the fear that they have because they will know everything that they need to know to not make mistakes.
You've got a story on this though, and I think that's really worth really connecting on and talking about because you literally were at this low point in your life. And then when you made the decision for everything to change, it happened almost overnight.
Absolutely.
And there was a massive knowledge gap and it didn't matter, right?
That's right.
Like go to the beginning on this one, because I want everyone to hear this. This is very, very powerful where you found yourself newlywed, bad credit, didn't have the money, and you and your wife are talking about your dreams and your dream house and all the money that you didn't have that you were going to spend to create this amazing life to keep her secure and create the life that you wanted.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like I did what everybody tells you to do. Like I did it. Like I got good grades in high school. I went to college. I got a degree. I got a high paying job with a technical degree, right? I was making six figures. I was single. I was living the life, right? Like
what were you doing? What was your tech job?
I was designing software and doing data analytics.
Data analytics and designing software.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Making great money, 6-figure income. It's just me. And I just didn't know how to manage money. And so I would find myself, I would get paid and then I would get paid again in 2 weeks. And right before that next paycheck would come, I'd literally be trying to do the math to figure out how many meals I could eat off the dollar menu in order to get to my next paycheck. Right.
And this was on a 6-figure income.
6-figure salary.
Yeah.
And then single,
just me.
Just you.
Right, just me.
But
right?
in all fairness, without financial education, we default to something called Parkinson's law. And it says that we will spend plus or minus 10% of what we make. So frankly, whether you make $50,000 a year or $500,000 a year, you're going to find that this stat rings true across the board. That you're basically going to adjust your lifestyle just to whatever your earnings are.
That's what I did every time I got a raise, was I figured out what I was going to spend that raise on.
Wow.
Right.
Can you remember some of the things that you bought in the beginning that when you were not investor minded? Come on.
Okay, we're getting real, right? We're getting real, right?
Investor mindset.
We're getting real, right?
Come on.
I was telling you on our way over here about this super cool car that I had. I had this Mustang and I had tricked it out, and it was everybody loved it. It was so cool. Kids would stop in the middle of traffic, get out and take pictures of it.
Wait. When you say tricked out, what kind of money were you dropping to trick this thing out?
Oh, dude, man. It probably had a $10,000 body kit on it. It probably had the wheels, $15,000 wheels on it.
I'm hearing Tokyo Drift right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was nuts, man. It was nuts.
Paint job?
No, I didn't. I bought it with a really cool color, so I kept it the same color, but carbon fiber parts and superchargers, like it was decked out and it was fun. But I had no business spending money on that stuff. I'd be driving this car to the dollar menu. Like that's right.
You talk about being house poor, you were car poor.
I was car poor, right? Just poor financial decisions, man. And so what happened is,
did it help you score your woman though?
No, no. She didn't care about any of that stuff.
Hashtag not worth it.
She didn't care about any of that stuff, right? And so like, I meet this amazing woman, right? And I knew I had to marry her the day I met her. I knew day one I met her that I was going to marry her. And 365 days after that first date, we got married. And so that's an amazing marriage story. And like, yes, I physically became a married person, but mentally, like I didn't understand what it took to be a provider yet, right? And I quickly realized that my wife didn't want to eat off the dollar menu halfway through being paycheck to paycheck.
Even if she was in a nice Mustang?
Right, even if she was in a nice Mustang in the drive-thru. And so I had a huge wake-up call. I had two wake-up calls. The first wake-up call came when we wanted to buy our first home together, right? Because we were living in a place. I had a roommate, right? And then my wife was also living with me, and we wanted our own place. And so we go and we start house shopping. Prices were still pretty affordable then. And we go to apply for a mortgage. I'm like, I make six figures. She made about half my income, but that was still a decent salary for what she did. And I'm like, we're good. And we're over $150,000 as a household. Like, we'll be able to get whatever house we want. And the mortgage broker, I'll never forget it, called us and said, we want to approve your wife for this loan as long as you, Henry, aren't on it. Right. And I just wasn't expecting that because I did what everybody said. I did it. Like, I got the good grades. I got the degree. I got the job. And I can't even afford to provide a starter home for my wife. And like, yeah, I got to live there. And yeah, we still bought the house, but my name wasn't on anything.
Was that a blow to your ego personally?
Dude, it still hurts thinking about it. Like, cause I wanted to provide for her, right? Yeah. Like, and I know that she wanted that too. And was she happy?
Did that create weirdness for the two of you? Like, did she ever make that weird?
No, never her, always me.
Yeah.
I always put that pressure. She never once made me feel bad. She was like, I got it, right? It was me. Like, I knew I didn't want that. I knew she deserved better than that. And I had no idea how I was going to give her better than that. I just was clueless. And so a few weeks later, the second wake-up call came when my wife and I were laying in bed having a conversation before we were going to go to bed that night. And we were doing the American dream conversation. We were talking about, where are we going to live? What dream home are we going to buy? And all the things we wanted in our dream home and the style of home and where we were going to go on vacations and how many kids we were going to have. And I remember the thought that crossed my mind when she said, when we were talking about the dream home, and the immediate thought was like, dream home? We barely got here. Like, this is all the dream home I can afford to provide you, right? And like the cramp I felt in my stomach at that moment, like it was just tough, right? And so we go to bed and like my mind's racing because I'm like, I can't do any of this, and she's gonna leave me and she's gonna find somebody who can give her what she wants because I can't do that. And I fooled her up until this point, right? And so I thought, sooner or later she was gonna figure it out. And so I woke up in a cold sweat, panic attack, and I just started Googling, man, how can I make some extra money? How can I make some extra money so that at least I can start putting us on a path to where I can afford.
Can I say, it's interesting. I'm sitting here and I'm like, you're such a foolish man. She fell in love with you for your heart.
Yes.
She was never second guessing you. But I got to tell you,
Yes.
when I told my wife 4 months after we got married, hey, you remember how I met you? And I told you I was gonna be a doctor.
Yeah.
And then I just tried taking organic chemistry the second time. And I got a worse grade on my second go around. And then I think my advisor's right. And I'm not gonna be a doctor. And I was nervous. I was like, this woman is going to freak
Yes.
out and leave me. Cause I didn't know. Like I got the best assurance in my life afterwards. She's like, wait, that has you worried? I don't care what you do. You'll figure it out. And I was like, oh, wow.
Yes.
I kind of thought that the identity of our marriage was linked a little bit to my career. I went through the same thing.
Yeah, man. I was terrified, Kris, terrified. And as I started to like thumb through all the articles about making money, I just kept seeing real estate. That was the theme, real estate, rental properties, flipping houses, real estate. You can make money in real estate, right? Everything from, gurus, infomercials to Bigger Pockets articles to where I landed was a TED Talk. And this TED Talk was a kid. And the name of the TED Talk was How to Design Your Dream Life Through Passive Income. And when you're having a panic attack about money and you see that title,
You're like, click.
you click on that link, right? And it was eye-opening to me because it was a 20-something-year-old kid. He had 20-something doors. And the talk was just about, hey, this is how I've achieved financial freedom. And this is what I get to do with my time because I made these decisions to buy real estate. And I just remember going, this kid's figured it out.
Can I just say, when the student is ready,
Yeah.
the teacher appears.
Yes.
And it's like, we get so caught up on suffering as if it's such a bad thing. And some people are going to hate what I'm about to say, but I got to say it. I think that if you get the opportunity introspectively to live long enough, you're going to find beauty in learning that only suffering can provide. And so you went through something really painful, a panic attack, and yet look at where you're at today. Was it worth it?
100%.
Right?
100%.
Right? I mean, this last year, you quit your six-figure job.
That's right.
Your woman quit her job, and you guys literally have your business and your real estate paying for everything now.
That's it.
Total different lifestyle.
Completely different. That panic attack changed my life, right? And I say the panic attack, it wasn't actually the panic attack, it was the decision I made after the panic attack. Because once I saw this kid, I just knew, I was like, if he's figured it out, I can figure it out.
It's interesting. I can relate so much because I came home from work. This was a few weeks after I told my wife I'm not going to be a doctor. And then like going to college was weird because it felt meaningless. Yeah. I would show up at my classes and I'm like, why am I doing this? Because I had this telemarketing full-time job. And when I wasn't literally on campus from like 6 a.m. to noon, my whole afternoon was working at this job. And the job was telemarketing to people that had been to college 30 years earlier. Like these were all 50 and 60-year-olds. And I saw this pattern. These people have been 401k'ing, IRAing, house pair offering. Yep. They've been society's fiscally responsible subset. And I was studying them now. And they were all within 5 or 10 years of retirement, and they were panicked. They were having their panic attacks because they had the realization as 60-year-olds and 55-year-olds are like, I'm screwed because I have done everything society asked of me. And I found mathematically that they would have somewhere between 10 and 15% of what they needed because no one taught them this one math thing. I'm like, man, I wish they would teach us at home or in high school. Yeah, I wish someone had told me the rest of society's game plan. Here's what they don't tell you. Everyone assumes that get good grades, go to college, and then be a great saver, house pair off, or 401k, you're like, and it'll end well. Fast forward 40 years later, and here's what they don't tell you. Then, 40 years later, take everything you've saved and give it to your financial planner. They'll annuitize it at 3%. You're like, wait a second. The average person in their 60s has $200,000. 3% on $200,000 to live off of that interest without eating into the principal is like $400 a month. Congratulations. Welcome. We tricked you. You didn't enjoy any of your life. You didn't take trips. You didn't use your vacation time because you were so convinced that if you would just save your money at a financial disorder level of not enjoying life. And then they get to the end and then they especially can't enjoy life because they have this rude awakening. You and I, how old were you when you figured this out?
36.
You were 36 and I was in my early 20s, and it was enough for me to say, we need to do something drastic And so it was when I came home with my wife and she was in total tears because couldn't pay rent in 5 days, couldn't pay tuition in 3 weeks. And the kicker was she tried to go grocery shopping and bounce the checkbook. So she didn't know how to buy. She just didn't know what she had in the account. She probably had something, could have bought something. She didn't know how to even check it. We didn't have an app for that.
Right.
So
you had to like call the president to figure out how much money you had.
Kind of.
Right.
So she went home hungry. And when I found her, she was crying because partially she was disturbed, she was traumatized, and she was hungry. And I'm like, in this country, I get it, right? I'm a poor college kid, starving college kid. Someone could argue that that's kind of just the way it's supposed to be. But that moment changed me and it led to a decision. And I actually didn't have the internet to Google everything in front of me at that moment. But within a matter of months, I found 3 people that had all made over $10 million in real estate. And I'm like, done. And I just started, and it was weird. It's not what I knew that made me the money. It was my motivation that came from that suffering.
Absolutely. And you said you found 3 people who had all made millions in real estate and you knew that's what you were supposed to do, right? So I made the decision, I'm going to figure it out. I didn't know how. I had bad credit. I didn't have any money, but I said, 1, I'm going to figure it out. 2, all right, well, what does that mean? I don't know, but somebody owns all these houses around here.
100%.
Get me in the room with the people who are doing this.
You know, it's really weird. I mean, I said earlier, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I'm still boggled today that I'll meet people, and some of these people are like, oh my gosh, Kris, I've seen all your social media, so I know who you are. And they're like, Kris Krohn. And then there's these people who are like, who's that? Who dat? They don't know me. And when they start learning, you know, I don't introduce myself as a social media influencer and whatever. They'll figure that out. I'll just say, oh yeah, you know, I own, you know, hundreds of businesses. I've done thousands of real estate deals, et cetera. And then I watch with curiosity, because when the student is not ready, they won't do, I think, the smartest thing that everyone should do that I've never stopped doing my entire life. Yeah. I'm the guy that will say, excuse me?
Right.
Talk to me. Can I take you to lunch? Do you have a book? Can we connect? Can I have your cell phone?
Yeah.
And like the weird thing is the majority of people, whether it's ego, confusion, lack of motivation, or unconsciousness, like, I don't know about you, but I mean, level with me. Don't most people know they're financially screwed? So when you meet someone that's wealthy, like, what's stopping you from, I don't know,
man,
like asking? And I'm confused.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, because the majority of people, they won't go down that road. They won't ask. And it's not out of embarrassment.
Yeah.
It's literally, they're not thinking, someone clearly found a better way. I wonder if I should inquire and just investigate this a little bit. And that one always blows my mind, because I was ready at 21 that if there was better, I was going to find it.
Yeah.
And there's no amount of humility I wouldn't be willing to step into to ask.
You know what? It's funny that just made me think of a story that I don't think I've ever told anybody. But it was a moment when I realized that my financial mindset had changed more so than the people that I was used to being around, right? Because once I decided to invest in real estate and I decided to move down this path, you also move down this path of becoming better with your finances, right?
Yes.
So it wasn't just about real estate that I had to get right. I had to figure out how to fix my credit, right? And how to become financially more responsible so that I could do something with this money that I was trying to make other than just spend it, right? And that put me in rooms of people who were wealthy. Yeah. And when I realized that, like, my mindset had shifted, I told you I had this fancy car. And so I went to this car meetup. And at this car meetup, it wasn't supercar kind of car meetup. It was just kind of car enthusiasts. But one guy showed up to this meetup with like Hondas and Mustangs in a Ferrari, and he had somebody else come with him drive one of his Porsches. He wanted to bring 2 cars, right? So he had 2, $200,000 cars there, and everybody was like, whoa, and they're all around him, and they're asking him about the cars. And I just remember, and like, they all want to know about these cars, and I just remember sitting back going, what is wrong with these people? I don't want to know anything about those cars. I want to know what you did to be able to get them, because how did you get that, right? And so when I got a chance to talk to him, I just talked to him about business.
About money.
I wanted to know what kind of business what kind of a job I thought he had a job. He's like, oh, well, I own a trucking company. Oh, what does that mean? Like, and so I had this whole conversation with him about his business, because like, I just want to figure out how to get those for myself. I can Google what to learn about a Ferrari or a Porsche, but I can't Google how you did that.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, because we started this off by saying fear stops most people from getting into real estate, but you guys were both in position where the pain got so real that
it transcended the lack of knowledge.
It transcended the fear.
Yep.
Of getting into it. So how does a person find that? Like, what if, because there's so many people today that say they want things, but when it comes to rubber meeting the road.
When I was 19, I had a near-death experience. I jumped into the ocean on a really bad day into a riptide to attempt to save my sister's life. And I was a trained lifeguard, and everything in my training said, don't. Too dangerous. But I also checked in and I'm like, no help will come in time. My sister's a horrible swimmer and I won't be able to live with myself. So I jumped in after her. And after that experience, I knew that God had saved my life. I hadn't saved her life. We had been spared. And it put me on this quest, just wondering, why am I still here? And years later, I read this book by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. And in that book, there's this one phrase that I'll never forget. He said, the secret to living is dying. There's a part of us that has to die, the fearful part of us. You have to find a way to transcend the excuses that hold you back, or you'll never really discover your greatness. So to step into your greatness, believe it or not, there's a purpose to the suffering in your life. And most of us, when we suffer, experience trauma, we do the wrong thing because no one's there to train us. What we're doing is we're creating erroneous conclusions and limiting beliefs from what happened. But if you'll pause and actually ask, what's the real lesson? What am I supposed to get out of this? How does this make me a better person? That's when you transcend some of life's most worst suffering moments. It's when you transcend trauma and you walk out of it better for having gone through it because of what you're learning, if you can just now find a way to apply it. So transcending fear, I think, comes from becoming really introspective on some of the deeper questions of life. Who are you? To what end were you made? What is your purpose? Why are you here? How are you going to create a meaningful life? What does it mean for you to live your greatest life possible? What is your highest and best life possible? And what do you have to do today to be in pursuit of it? And that has to become more meaningful than the mundane.
What do you think on that?
Well, I think that's a phenomenal answer. And it's super motivating to me to even be in this room and hear that and still want to go set the world on fire, right? And so but what I think is key to that is that I'm in this room, right? And what I mean by that is if you aren't sure of the how, guess what? You're never really going to figure out the how. Even when you think you've got it figured out, once you start to implement it, it's going to change on you.
That's true.
Right? And so the how isn't important. The how shows up when you take the action. But if you need to kind of jumpstart that action because you just can't get over the fear, then change your circle. Because you are the sum parts of the 5 people you spend the most time around. If you want to know where you're going to be in 5 years, look around you to the left and to the right. You'll be somewhere in between there. Yeah. Right? And so if you're not in rooms with people who are doing the things that you're interested in, right, it's going to be hard for you to hit that success. It's going to be hard for you to try to even think about figuring out the how, right? When I'm in a room with Kris Krohn on one day and then a room last week with another one of my real estate investor mentors, right? Kris is doing things that I don't know how to do them. But if I get in the room with him enough and get in the room with you guys enough to see it and watch it in real time, those things become much more tangible. So you've got to change your surroundings as well. And that's going to shed some light on the how. But at the end of the day, the how doesn't matter. You've got to just do.
It's weird that you say that. And it's really inspiring because it reminds me of the first time I had to write a check to go into a mastermind. Yeah. And I was skeptical. I was like, I'm the deal finder. There's got to be a way to get in this club for free. Yeah. There's got to be a way to wiggle, right? And because at that point in my life, everything was about the art of the deal. Yeah. And so I found this mastermind that I knew I needed to be a part of. And in the end, I had to write a check to get into it. And I was nervous and I was skeptical. I'm like, I'm going to lose my money. How do I know I'm going to get my money's worth? Is this really good choice? And then I thought, the solution. I better hustle and do deals with the people in this group. I better be the best student. I better sit on the front row. So I got on the front row. I'd take notes like crazy. And then I would sometimes over 3 days get like 40 or 50 hardcore instructions of do these things, life will get better in life and business, et cetera. And I was that kind of person that within 90 days would have all of them implemented. And I was just doing that partially out of sheer desperation. I wanted to make sure that I got my money's worth and that I could make enough money to have justified the experience because my intuition said yes. And my mind's like, save the money, bro.
Right.
And so I went with my intuition, which by the way, never defy your own inspiration. If you do, you will develop self-doubt. And that's the most expensive cancer that you can create in your own system. So you can't afford it. It's too expensive. It's like entertaining negativity for fun. Don't do that. So I went to this mastermind and after a year, I looked at all the money that I made. And something weird occurred during that year that I wasn't really tracking for. I actually made a great return. I made like $600,000. And I was really, really proud of that outcome. But when I asked why it actually happened for one core reason that had nothing to do with the network or the deals in the room. It had to do with the people in the room. And the fact that when I hung around them and I saw the big games they were up to, it fed the fire like nothing else. I think most of us are used to being the biggest fish in our own pond.
That's right.
And we're nobodies. You got to go find an ocean that is so big where you're the minnow and you can surround yourself with sharks. You can surround yourself in an environment so far outside of your comfort zone. So I join masterminds every single year just to be around people where I'm like, that dude's playing a bigger game. I'm just going to stand next to him.
You don't want to be the tiny guy in the mastermind when they get to your introduction. You're like, right?
No.
You want to get in there and be somebody who everybody goes like, yeah, that guy's rocking it.
Yeah. So it's weird that over the years, as I've joined these masterminds, the biggest benefit that I get is being inspired by being around people who want to play a bigger game, because at home, most people don't have that.
That's right.
Most people are surrounding themselves with people that will support their inadequacy.
That's right.
So I'm really excited about this episode, and we'll wrap things up here. Because we start out by saying, what does it really take to get into real estate? And we've eliminated knowledge, and we talked about finding that pain that pushes you to overcome fear. So motivation is key. But then instead of a how to get into real estate, we're really talking about a who. Who are you hanging around with? You said the first thing you did was you found 3 people, Kris, that already did what you wanted to achieve.
You're one person away from lifetimes of income. Not an idea, not a strategy. You're a person away from lifetimes of income.
Tweet that.
Yeah. Tweet that out. Drop mic.
Yeah, that's a fact. The first thing I did was I said, where are these real estate investors? And I literally Googled real estate investor groups. I didn't know RIAs were a thing. And I found RIAs and meetups. And I just said, if real estate investors are in the room, I'm going to be in the room too. If they'll let me in the room, I'm going to be in the room. If they won't let me in the room, I'm going to sneak in.
See, the motivation to do whatever it took, and then got in the room with people that were already doing it.
Yep.
I don't think anybody's teaching this stuff.
Yep. Paid itself off in spades.
Kris, final words.
I'm glad, Henry, that we've had you here today, because you're a man who puts his money where his mouth is. I've witnessed you invest in yourself again and again. And I think that that is probably the last thing that not a lot of people are willing to do, is we think of an investment into a business opportunity or an investment into a real estate deal. But the one investment that will give you lifetimes of far greater payoff is when you invest in yourself. And that takes a certain level of self-belief. I've always believed that God can't really work through us if we don't even believe in ourselves. Yeah. It's not about believing in your maker if you're the other half of the equation and you don't have that self-confidence and self-belief. Henry, you're a guy who believes in himself. You show that in word and action, which is why you've come so far and you have so much further to go. Thank you for spending this time with us today. And I hope everyone's had an opportunity to learn from you.
Hey, thank you so much, man. I feel like we're on the same page today, because the literal second thing I did when I made the decision was that I just started telling people I was a real estate investor. Hadn't even gone to a real estate investor meetup yet, didn't have any money, had bad credit. But I said, if I don't believe I'm going to do this, who else is going to believe me? And I just believe that this world gives you what you put out. And so I just told people from day one, I'm going to be a real estate investor. It's how I found my first deal.